Hello.
Hi, Cheryl. Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
How you been?
Listen, I'm doing well.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. Thank you for making time for us, for being on the show tonight.
You're very welcome. I'm honored you asked.
No, listen, I tell myself, I was like, we can't have a women in media series and not have Cheryl on the show. That you gotta have Cheryl in the show because I mean, you've been in the game now. For a lot of people that don't know, man, Cheryl's been in the game for almost 30 years now.
Well, it
You
actually is. This year marks 30 years.
see, and you know, and you've been in different aspects of the business. And one of the reasons I wanted you to come on is because I feel like a lot of times when we look at this industry, like people don't realize what the secrets are to like lasting long and having an impact, something that's like really going to outlive you. And it's not just something that you're here for a short time. And for you that have been in the game for that long, I feel like you have a wealth of knowledge and information for people who are just coming up right now. People who are, because I know a lot of my followers are young. Some of them still in college. Some of them just fresh out of college, trying to get into the business. And I needed to have someone on the show that can speak to that. Someone who's been there that long and seen a lot of change in the business up until this point. So, so far for you, 30 years in the business, I want you to start off with just talking to us about some of the challenges that you have faced so far.
Well, for those who don't know, I do gospel and inspiration. So I guess a major challenge, first off, because I'm a female in media, but then I also do gospel and inspiration by choice. I've had opportunity to do urban and urban AC, but this is my passion. This is where I know I belong. This is where I want to be. And so one of my lifelong goals, or one of the things that I believe that I'm here to do, gospel and inspiration, is so that we can expand this platform, this format, so that it's well respected. I believe that I'm placed in this position for that very reason as well. So I think some challenges that I faced, number one being gospel and inspiration, but then also number two, being female in the business.
Talk about so far for you, 30 years in the game. What do you think is the key? If you were to mention the number one thing that has really kept you so far in the game, as far as like maybe five keys that you have that you feel like for someone just coming up right now that you would say that you can say this is what I did. These are some of the steps that I took to have been in the game this long, because the reason why that's so key is radio is something that's ever changing. It's constantly changing, and we're living in a time when even with platforms like Pandora, Spotify, where it's like streaming now is everything. So but you continue to just be and to thrive in the industry. So if you can just share with us like some of the keys that you feel like were responsible for you being in the game this long and to continue to grow and to be in the space that you're in.
So I think that one of the reason that I've seen longevity is because I've always understood that if I'm working for a company, my job is to grow their revenue. Now, in the midst of growing their revenue, I'm also building my brand. I'm also building me. I'm also building my career. But if you're contracted with a business or an organization, you have to understand why they have you coming. They believe that you are an asset for them. They believe that you can bring in revenue. They believe you can bring in ratings. They believe that you can perform in that. And I think that you find people who assassinate their career because they make that mistake, that they become bigger than the company they work for. Their brand, and it can be like we can see Breakfast Club, we can see Donnie Simpson. We know that his brand is way bigger than where he is right now, but it's basically because he submitted to the company that he worked for. You understand? So he was able to build his brand because he used BET's platform. He was able to build his brand because he used PGC before going to Radio One. And so for every company that he worked for, one of the things I learned from him was to make sure that you are valuable to the company, right? So not only am I looking to make great ratings because I work in the programming department, but I'm also trying to figure out ways to generate revenue for
Right.
the company. Because
Right.
if I can generate revenue for the company that I work for, then I can also generate revenue for myself,
Mm.
right? So when you're working for a company, you know the drill. And when you're generating revenue for them, you get endorsement fees, you get, opportunity to have other money on your line item than just your base salary. And
Right.
so I super serve clients. I want to make sure that the brand I represent, I've contracted to work for Radio One. So my brand looks great, but so does Radio One. So I want to make sure that I'm not doing anything to embarrass the company. I
Yeah.
want to make sure that I'm doing, and people, a lot of millennials don't understand that platform because they feel like, oh, I'm the brand, I'm the commodity, I'm the reason they're making money. But
Yeah.
how about when they get rid of you, they're gonna bring in somebody else that can make the brand and make the money as
Mm-hmm.
well. So you're expendable. So me being 30 years in the game, I know the format, I know the music, I know the market, I know the industry, but I want to bring those gifts to the company that I work for. And if I do that, then I know that I can generate revenue for myself. And so, for some people, they may think, you know what, I saw you talking with Shay, and it was an amazing interview where she was able to build her brand outside of the company. That's a
Right.
whole different ball game because
Yeah.
now you're creating your own mark, you're generating your own money, you're getting your own revenue, you're
Yeah.
doing all of that on your own time. But when you're contracted for somebody else, you're hired to bring that to their brand. And
Absolutely.
I think that the reason I have longevity is because I understand that. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're losing because you're bringing revenue to their company. That
Yeah.
means you're an asset and you can use their platform to build your brand. So, and I think we miss that as millennials. So the top thing I think is being a team player, understanding the business. Number two, you got to understand the business and you got to be expendable. So don't be good at just one thing. Don't be good. You know me, I'm good at radio, but I also want to do video. I
Yeah.
also want to write. I also want to do whatever aspect. I know how to program. I programmed a radio station for 15 years. So you
Right.
can bring all of those gifts and assets to the company. Should
That's,
something happen, in the digital department, then I'd be able to be the talent and do some things there. If something should happen on the programming end, I should be able to step in and do that. If something should happen in production, I should be able to do my own production. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I'm one of those people that don't want a producer because I want to be able to run my own board. I don't want, you know what I mean?
Right.
I don't want to cost the company a lot of money. In
Yeah.
other words, so if you have me and you have a producer, then you're going to cost the company a lot of money. But if
Yeah.
you have me, then I can make the money that the producer was going to make, and I could be. So you have to learn all aspects of it, So I think that might be 4. I don't know if I've given you 5, but I think those are some great, some great reasons and some great ways to have longevity.
Definitely. And you mentioned something too. Like I feel like even I want you to talk about like what's going on now. And we go back and forth with this conversation all the time with some of my friends about just the state of radio today. Um,
Mm-hmm.
People feel like radio is dying, radio is dead, and that sort of thing. You have all these streaming platforms, and you have a lot of young artists right now who are coming up, and they're doing amazing numbers on the streaming side, and they feel like, what do we need radio for? That sort of thing. So, but to have been in the game that long, I want you to speak to why radio is and will always be important in this business.
Mm-hmm. It's free. Number one, radio is free. So you don't have to buy like you do on the digital side with XM. You don't have to subscribe to it. Podcasting, you don't have to buy the platform to be to check out your podcast. And I do know they have some free things that you can do online or whatever, but it's also convenient. So when you jump in your car, you can literally hear terrestrial radio, wherever you are. I don't know if a lot of people are listening, in their homes like they used to. Like I know, being 30 years in the game, that was one of the things we did. Like on Sunday, that was like my mom would turn on radio while we were getting ready for church. You know what I mean? Even though Bobby Jones was on and television was doing their thing, you don't find a lot of platforms
Yeah.
doing that. So radio was our form of knowing what was going on in the world, you know what I mean? Like being on top of the news stories and that kind of thing. So even now, jumping in your car to hear other people's perspectives on it. And then terrestrial radio is evolving. So it's going to be around forever. And I'm going to tell you why, because it's building its platform. You know that, right? So even though we're terrestrial, we still have a digital platform. Even though we're terrestrial, we still have the video platform. Even though we're terrestrial, you know what I mean? We have all these other platforms that add to the terrestrial radio spot. So you can hear me live on radio, but you can also check me out on social media. You can always check me out on the video, and you can check me out on YouTube. You can check, you know, on all of those places, on the website. You know, you can stream from wherever you are in the world. And one awesome thing about my format is that you don't have a lot of gospel stations in a lot of places. So, right? So even across the world, you know, I'll go live at noon, and I'm getting people, you know, faithfully watching from, you know, Nigeria, from West Africa, from Australia, from, you know, different places in the world. I'm actually getting people to watch because they don't have this format in a lot of places, even though they're Christians and they love the music. So, you know, I don't think, to answer your question, I really don't think radio is going anywhere. It's not antiquated because radio companies have learned to use other components to build on the platform of terrestrial radio.
Amazing. And you know,
my girlfriend Neely is on.
something else to take that I was talking to one of my friends earlier today, and I was like, he just, you know, we went to school together and everything, and I was telling him how much time has passed between us, and he just got married now. And I was talking to him about how, because he's in the business as well, being able to manage both sides, you know, being married and in the business and everything. And you've been in it 30 years. You know, you're a wife. Please, if you could just talk to us about how do you do it. And people don't realize you're also a youth leader as well. Like, and it's all of these things. You're a business woman. Like, a lot of times I'm like, how does she do it? You know what I mean? How do you do all of this and wear all of these hats so gracefully?
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, I have a great village. Let's just start there, because I don't want you to think that I've done it myself. I have an amazing husband,
right?
Who, you know, works with me with running my home. Submission is usually a bad word for this generation, but I submit to his leadership because he's such an amazing guy. Like, he's so dope, and he's so awesome at running our home that that I submit to him on that, because I am a leader by nature, but I don't want to lead at home. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't want to lead at home, but I have 4 kids, and all of them are grown now. As you can see, I've been 30 years in. So my oldest son is 30. I have a 26-year-old. My 26-year-old has given me 2 grandbabies.
Wow.
And then there's Kayla and Darren, you know, them, the babies. And so Kayla is 21 now, and Darren's 20. So they're all grown. But there was a time when I was doing the morning show, and they were infants. You know what I mean? I was up at 5, and I was on my way to the radio station, and not only doing the morning show, but programming it as well, while I had my babies. And I had a great village. But again, my husband, we took shifts. So in the morning, you know, he got them dressed and got them ready, and, you know, got them to the daycare. And when I got off in the evening, I would get them, and they're radio babies, because they would be in my office oftentimes as I was programming. They know the business, you know what I mean? My daughter was born, you know, a pound and a half. So she's more of a celebrity than I am in this market. People know her and see her and know who she is because they prayed with me when I was pregnant with her on air and that kind of thing. So, you know, I have a great village, and you're right. I was youth leader, and over, you know, not just my church, but over the youth department in the Church of God in Christ for, you know, our region and our jurisdiction. So I was doing a lot in ministry as well. And, you know, I just took it one day at a time and one opportunity at a time. And I was at a point in my career and in my ministry where I really wanted to make an impact, even with my children, the children that I had this passion to lead them. And again, because my husband would take up the slack if I wasn't home. And then, you know, he was there in ministry with me. We do couples ministry together. With that, my mom was a great source. My best friend, who is actually single, but she's been like second mom to them. So my husband would trust her with the house if he and I had to leave, you know. So I had a really good village that really got behind the career, got behind the opportunities. But I also passed up a lot of opportunities for being a mommy too. Again, you know, I had opportunity to do urban radio. I had opportunity to do urban AC. I had opportunity to program the Yolanda Adams morning show that kicked off the Inspiration brand at Radio One that I had to turn down because it was in Houston and I had children. But my husband was also military.
Yeah.
So a lot of the opportunities I had outside of the DC market, I couldn't take because he was either activated full-time in military, or, you know, it wasn't the right move for me for my family. So I made some sacrifices with regards to my family. My family is number one in priority, and I'm glad I made those sacrifices.
Yeah.
But faith kind of led me through it, and now that they're grown, I can kind of navigate and move without, worry about, what they're doing.
Right.
But I am still a wife. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
still have to run my house, and just having my family have the understanding of knowing, what the career is about.
That's key. You talk so many things in what you just said. I mean, making a lot of sacrifices, I think, is important that in everything that you do, and putting family first. I think that's key. I want to touch on something that I remember you doing an interview a while ago, and you talked about just knowing when to move.
Mm.
Right? And I feel like I want us to close this out before we get there, and what God is speaking to you about in this time and season. You know what I mean? Yeah. There
Well,
was
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
you were talking about knowing when to move, being in a place where at that time in your life you felt like where you were was good, you was comfortable, but you heard it was confirmation from a few people that it was time for you to move. And I want you to, for a lot of us, even right now, this whole thing about being in our comfort zones, and that sometimes growth would not happen if you continue to stay in that place. And just know, and you talked about the fact that not too long after you left, that whole format closed down. You know what I mean? Speak on that, because I think it's something that's so key even in this time, and whatever it is that word that you have for the people in this time and season. Because I feel like regardless of what we have going on around us, I feel like God is always speaking, and we have to be in the voice of God. And if you can just speak on that, whatever God is laying in your heart, even in this time and season.
I am a woman of faith, as you know, and every move that I've made in my adult career has basically been, or in my adulthood has been, because I've had a relationship with the Lord. My husband, I knew when I first started dating him that he was my husband. Like God, confirmed that that's who he is. And so we had like a rocky courtship. But even in the midst of that, God kept reminding me, I told you. And when I say the marriage is amazing, that was kind of like the first step for me, Lysious, to trust him through everything, right? It was like, okay, he was right about that. So my daughter was born 1.5 pounds, and she was sick, and God shared with me, first I wasn't even supposed to have kids. I was having a lot of issues, women issues, and I wasn't supposed to have kids. But then I get pregnant with Kayla, and the Holy Spirit spoke that she would live and not die. She was born 1.5 pounds. She's dealing with all these issues, early on in her life. And God kept reminding me she'll live and not die. Today she's 21, right? So I learned early on that when I hear his voice, that I have to move. I have to react to that. So you're right. There was a place when it was thriving. I have 2 Stellar Awards under my belt: Radio Announcer of the Year, Radio Programmer of the Year, programming the radio station. And the station was booming. It was the #1 station in our market. It was a little AM station that we had. I mean, the numbers that we're making on my FM station I work for now, I was making on this little AM station. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy, the things that God was allowing us to do on that station. And it was at the pinnacle of my career. And I got to tell you, he goes by B. Slade now, but Tone pulled me aside. And you know how you get to a place in your career where you feel stagnant and there's more than where you are? I was struggling with that. Like, I was like, should I move to the urban side? Like, what should I do? Because I just feel stagnant, even though we were winning, right? But he came out of nowhere, and it was confirmation to what I had asked the Lord. And he said, it's time for you to leave. Like, you have to go, and you have to do it quickly. And I was like, what? Like, from the naked eye, you're thinking I'm not supposed to go. Yeah. But I stayed in there a little while longer. And then it was staying there a little while longer, trying to push this thing ahead. And we were supposed to be up for an FM station. That fell through, but he already told me that's not going to happen. That's going to fall through. Holy Spirit was trying to prepare me for the exit. And finally, when I got to the point of being able to go, and my boss was like, you know, if you leave, you know, we will give you your severance. We believe, you know, we trusted whatever you did. You know, I had great accolades, in other words, when I left. So I got my severance and everything. And literally 3 months later, they flipped the format.
Wow.
He was trying to make me program this talk station. They had opened up Praise 104.1 on the FM dial, which was our competition on this little AM station. We were supposed to be up for an FM. So so Tone kind of like already let me know they're not going to move in that direction. They didn't. They ended up giving it to a Spanish station. But had I not heard the voice of the Lord, I'd have been there twiddling my thumbs. You know what I mean? Just kind of going in circles. But God had directed me. And it literally was 2 years later that Radio One had reached out. They reached out to me initially to get the job. And I didn't get the position. And I stayed in the position I was in. And 2 years later, they ended up gutting out the entire station at Praise, starting over. And they hired me at that time. And I've been there now for 10 years. So hearing the voice of God. And so I always kind of wonder, you know, should I be in the programmer seat? Because that's what I was known to do. That's what I did well. And, you know, should I be in that seat or should I, you know, remain here? Well, I've learned to be content as to where God has placed me. And I began to work in that area excellently. And I'm just hearing his voice as to what to do and where to go. And he's been faithful. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my entire career. You know, doing the things that I'm able to do. And even now during COVID, my show has gone syndicated. I'm working in 6 different markets on Sundays and 2 markets Monday through Saturday, and you know, and running a whole different community affairs show and just other opportunities that God has afforded us in this time of COVID or you know, being barren. And so I have to be grateful that I hear the voice of the Lord and to move when he says move. And in this business, you know, it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't always make sense. But I just know that where he moves me has been prosperous. So at this point in my career, 30 years in, I'm not going to move from hearing his voice and doing and that's what relationship is. And I'm not trying to be spooky or anything like that, but that's what relationship is with the Lord. You know when he's speaking to you. You know which direction he's going in. You know when you have questions on the table that he's answered. It might not be the answer you want, but it's going to be his answer. And I've known now to walk in his answer.
Absolutely. And just, you know, before you go, 2 things before you go. What are some of the things that you're currently working on, maybe even personally in your own brand that that we can support you and
Well, awesome. Yeah, I'm doing all these things for the radio station, which has me really, really consumed. But I do have my own company, Cheryl Jackson Enterprises. And people can follow me there, Cheryl Jackson ENT. And with that is where I do all the hosting. I do all of the, you know, promotions. But one of the things that God has really afforded on my heart for this 30 year is to give back to the community. So I'm opening a boutique. It's a consignment boutique that I'm working on, that I will be able to use my platform to help underprivileged families, right? Families who can't afford clothing, especially what's happening now with regards to COVID. And so with this 30-year anniversary, I'm launching that. But I also love to introduce new artists. So, you know, on my Cheryl Jackson Enterprise brand, that's one of the platforms that I use, is to do, you know, showcasing. And we're learning to try to do that now on the digital side, you know, because we can't do the live events and that kind of thing. But once the world open back up, we'll continue to do that, you know, live. So those are the things I'm doing on my individual brand. The station has me really, really busy these days, and busy is good. So outside of the station, those are the things that I'm doing. And of course, if they follow me on Cheryl Jackson Radio here on Instagram, you know, Twitter, Facebook, you know, YouTube, then they'll see all of the things that we're doing with our brand. You know, God has really placed on me in these days about the gratitude effect, because the world is so dark. You know, because we're dealing with COVID, because we're dealing with, you know, racial injustice, we can find ourselves in a really dark place, really like looking at the world like, is this really happening? But if you can find the grateful in whatever it is that you're dealing with, on the worst scenario, those of us that are believers, the Bible says that we always win. And even unto death, we win, because God took away the sting of death, right? So even when we're dealing with, you know, loved ones who have died, or we're dealing with loved ones who have had COVID, we have to find the grateful in the worst scenario. We have to find the grateful. I'm a caregiver for my mom, and she's in a nursing home. I haven't been able to see her since March. You know what I mean? I haven't been able to touch her since March. I do get an opportunity to FaceTime her and that kind of thing. So I'm grateful that I can do that. You know, I'm grateful that even in the midst of COVID, that I'm not in the studio, but I am able to still work. So whatever it is that you're going through, the darkest of the darkest place, find the grateful. Find the grateful in it, because when you find the grateful in it, it'll help you get through it, right? Like, this isn't the end. Oh, this isn't the worst scenario. You may have lost your job. You may not know where, you know, how you're going to pay your rent. But the fact of the matter is you still have a place, right? The fact of the matter is that they do have opportunity for you to have renters insurance, whatever it is. It might not even be your situation, but you still have life. You still have, you know, you still have your breath. You still have your health. So find the grateful in whatever the darkest situation is in your life.